Welcome everyone in the room and at home to the HR Human Resources Committee on 6th of February 2024. If I can ask everyone, all the participants, to use their microphones while speaking as the meeting is being webcast, that would be very helpful. So the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Yeah, we've received apologies for absence from Councillor Deffley, Councillor Connolly, Councillor Hollobon, Councillor Wilcox, and Councillor Dunlop is substituting tonight for Councillor Connolly.
Thank you. So just to begin with the minutes of the 13th of September 2023. Are there any comments on these minutes? Are members content for me as the chair to sign the minutes? Can I ask for a proposer? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Swainston. Can I ask for a seconder? Yes, that's right. So I'm going to second the, because Councillor Dunlop obviously wasn't here. Right, can we have a show of hands to indicate whether you support the motion for me as the chair to sign the minutes of the committee? All those in favour? So there's nobody against, nobody abstaining, so that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 3. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, no declarations of interest. Right, so moving on to item 4, Chairman's announcements. Right, so this is the first time that we've used this. Ellie Swainston, who will probably introduce herself in a moment, is on Teams and will introduce the report. So thank you very much, Ellie, for producing this report. Just to give you a sort of overview of what the purpose of the meeting is, what the purpose of the HR committee is for anyone who's not familiar with it. Basically, we have an oversight and monitoring function. We oversee and monitor the HR activities in the district council and also health and safety. And we've only got 2 items on the agenda today, so the report for Q3 and the gender pay gap report. So if I can hand over to Ellie for item 5. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ellie Starling. I'm the Head of HR and Organisational Development for the Council. The reports I've given to you today are the report for Q3, and it's in a slightly different format to the last committee paper we did, following some feedback from Councillor Carter regarding the fullness of the report. So you will see today that it's a larger report than the original dashboard we gave you last time, but it gives you more information. So I'm hoping that you've had a chance to read it. Some key points really are that in terms of sickness, things are all right. We don't have a huge sickness problem, and we handle our sickness very seriously and very quickly. We use the policies available to us, and we use our occupational health service and our employee assistance programme to help staff understand their illness and how they can return to work, and what we can do as an authority to assist their return to work and their continuing presence at work. So we work very hard with our managers and Unison to help this process along. Clearly, we want people to work when they're able to work, and we want to give them every support we can to help that happen. So in terms of the first thing around sickness, have you got any questions that you would like to ask me around that?
Yes, I have.
Yep, go ahead.
Thanks, Ellie. I had a read through it, and there was one thing right at the beginning that leapt out in terms of sickness absence. And I'm not sure about the colours quite on this, but the way I'm interpreting it, there's 21% of the days, the causes of sickness was musculoskeletal.
Yes.
And the I couldn't quite make out the number of the percentage for back. Was it 9%?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a total of 30% in terms of musculoskeletal. I would lump them all together. And I looked at ONS data for 2022, and it seemed to be 21% in total, including back. So it looks like we're almost 50% above the ONS norm. I appreciate that there's many different industries, so you're going to get different things. However, it did seem a lot to me, and I wondered, was there any chance that this might be due to a lot of home working and people maybe not having the right chairs, desks, etc., in the right environment to actually work in, and you end up with sore shoulders, wrists, all sorts of things, which is just purely due to posture. And keeping going on that thread, I wondered, did we recognize this? And if so, was there anything that we were proactively doing to remedy it, if I've come to the right conclusion?
Yeah. So in terms of home working, Peter, who's in the room with you tonight, has done a lot of work in giving support to staff at home with guidance on how best to sit, etc. And we do display screen assessments at home. Staff do that. And from this year, we are asking to see a picture of their workplace so that if there's anything we think is contributing or could contribute to any form of musculoskeletal or indeed any other illness, we will be given that advice based on what we learn from staff. So now we are formally moving out of lockdown mode and into a blended working pattern. We are doing a lot more work on that. We've always had guidance for staff, but we're ramping it up now to make sure that staff are really clear on what is and isn't a good working environment and helping them where we can. We can offer support in terms of risers on the desk to help people have a better line of sight to their laptop so they're not hunching over. So we are doing a lot of things to help. When we start getting this information back, we will be able to say, what else can we do to help? So that's where we are with that at the moment.
Great, thank you. That sounds fantastic that we're being proactive about actually making sure that people at home are healthy.
Yeah, and where people can't have a good place to work at home, we will work with them about should you come to the office more? Would that be better for you? So we will be having individual conversations with people as cases arise, really. And that is how we're working at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Stephen?
Yes, Chairman, just further to what Ellie said, Peter and I last year did an entire audit of all the chairs in the building, and we condemned 50% of the office chairs, and we purchased new office chairs, all of which are fully adjustable, including lumbar support. And we have had a history of these types of having special chairs for members of staff. In fact, we have a very high level of special chairs for staff, which is why the chair specification that we bought is very, very adjustable, and we hope to eliminate that. One of the things we did do with some of the chairs, which were all right if you took arms off, etc., and things like that, was to offer them to members of staff. And so just to reassure you that in the office, we have taken action to make sure that the chairs that the staff are sitting on are very fit for purpose, which they were not before.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you very much. Councillor Swainston.
Thank you. Just a comment, really. I don't know how others feel about it, but I don't find the pie chart particularly helpful. I'm just wondering if a bar graph would actually be easier to read.
Yeah, we can absolutely look at that. Again, this is a new format that's up for conversation, and we'll take on any feedback and see what we can do to improve things.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, I just had one question as well about the work-related injury in relation to a vehicular collision. Just what the process is around the sort of health and safety processes which are followed, which were followed around that collision.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we had a member of staff driving one of the electric vehicles and was involved in a road traffic accident. Another vehicle impacted with them. That matter obviously is managed by the council's insurer, and I have complete copies of and the reports from the officer and the officer that went out to provide assistance to that member of staff. Also, in conjunction with that, we are providing them with occupational health support as well. So the HR team are working with the officer to ensure that their workload is being managed properly. The officer is currently on light duties on the advice of occupational health and the GP, which we are supporting that officer with further support and assistance if it is needed. So it's fully documented and recorded. The police were not involved in the matter. They've not taken any further action that I'm aware of. The officer is making and is back at work making good recovery, but obviously their time is being monitored by their manager and being supported by the HR team to make sure that everything's okay. And also, obviously, the insurer will be handling the claim aspect of that. So it is all documented and recorded. So it's there for future reference. Copies of those reports that obviously also go onto that officer's file. So if they ever need to refer to it, that information is accessible for them.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Peter. Right. Yeah, can I? Yeah.
I got another question regarding planning staffing. I appreciate it's a real challenge to get the planning staffing that we need, and we have a number of vacancies, which obviously saves us money in a way, but we're replacing it with agency staff. I wondered what the net effect of that was, where you save on vacancies, but you spend probably extra on agency. What was the net position on that?
I can't tell you financially because I'm not the budget holder. That would be Sarah Saunders. What we are doing, if I was going to talk about this in the recruitment section about our proactive approach now to try and reduce our reliance on agency staff. In terms of the finance, I'm sorry, I can't give you that figure. Maybe
Well,
Stephen? Stephen can.
Yes, Stephen, would you?
Yes, Chairman, through you. The cost of it is about £400,000 is the premium we pay for agency staff to replace the fact that we can't recruit to those posts. I do know that planning have been successful in securing grant from government, and one of the things that they're going to do with that particular grant is to deal with urban design and to come up with an urban design handbook and to entrench along the rest of the planning staff urban design principles, because the one post that we really cannot recruit to at the moment is urban design, which will be absolutely crucial when the Harlow and Gilston Garden Town applications come through come through in more detail to actually start putting a spade in the ground and starting building the houses there. So they're using that with the planning grant in the first phase. To do that in relation to urban design, to try and find a different way of getting the skills that we need and getting the consultants in to not only upskill the staff, but to basically write that urban design guide for us. And I know Ellie's done an awful lot of work with Sarah and other colleagues in HR about really emphasising about what a great place to work it is, East Herts Council Planning Department, because on the one hand, you can be doing a sensitive barn conversion in a rural area, and the next you're basically involved in a planning application for 10,000 new houses in what is effectively a set of garden villages attached to Harlow and Gilston. So in terms of experience, it's a great place to work, but I won't major on this because I know Ellie knows far more than I do about the recruitment levers that she's pulling in relation to the non-pay benefits.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I just come back on that? That it's 400,000 in excess because of agency staff, but we don't know what the savings we're making on the vacancies.
It's net £400,000 cost. It's a net £400,000 cost to the council to cover the vacant posts with agency staff. It's basically why we have an overspend next year, this financial year. It's why we have an overspend. It's mainly driven by planning. So because a consultant will cost you whatever the member of staff is paid plus on top. And they obviously don't get paid that, you know, but through the agencies, etc. So consultants cost a lot of money in order, and there's such a shortage of planners that the agencies can command the fees that they command. And unfortunately, within Hertfordshire and the rest of local government, we're all playing a game of cutting each other's throats and upping pay. And actually, what we need to do, and what I know we've been doing here at East Herts, is to train our own. Yeah. Take them through the training and you know, and try and secure them with training contracts. Unfortunately, the training contracts are great until the private sector comes along and they just put their hand in their pocket, and once again they're selling you the consultants. But we need to deal with the supply issues in the main, because we're just trying to deal with demand by upping the price, and we actually need to deal with supply.
Yes, thank you very much for that. It is a sort of ongoing challenge. It has been, you know, noticeable since we started.
Didn't realise the scale of it. 400,000 is considerable. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments, or is there any more you want to say at this point, Ellie?
Not in terms of sickness. I want the next thing is really about planning and recruitment. So if I can run through that to say what we're trying to do to address, or what we are doing to try and address some of these issues that we find ourselves facing, and we're no different to any other authority. I've been on a heads of HR meeting last week, and we're all fishing in a very small pond for the same people. So we are thinking about different ways we can do our recruitment in order for people to understand what the benefits of working for East Herts Council really are, and not just about money. It's about the whole package. So if you're happy for me to talk through that now?
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Okay. So we now have our own landing page for planning that we have populated with various testimonials. We have a video from Ben Crystal talking about how the ambitions for East Herts Council in terms of planning. And that is a really good thing, actually, because it does express to people that we want to sympathetically plan, because we understand that people are concerned about the environment, etc. So that is on there. And Sarah Saunders, there's a video from her. Sarah was voted one of the top 5 most influential women in local government in Hertfordshire last year, so that's a good plus. And we have some testimonials from staff. So that's on our landing page. So rather than people land on East Herts' internet page, which can seem a bit, you know, you see like, when can I pick my bin up and things, we don't want people to stop there. So we've actually routed them through to this landing page now, so they go straight to where the jobs are. And we have done a market forces supplement exercise. We've looked at all of the wages in our region, plus some of the other places that we have to compete with, like London boroughs. And as a result, we have a market forces supplement in place for new roles. And we then had a deal where if we recruited to enough to earn the money back, then existing staff in those roles got the market forces supplement. So we achieved that target. What we didn't want to do was annoy our existing staff and they start looking somewhere else. So we've done that, and we will continue to review that on an annual basis. So we then gather evidence to say, is this still the right thing? Is this still the right amount of money? And I know money doesn't buy necessarily staff, but it does attract people if they know they can earn at least what they earn now. We are looking at how we can try and persuade some of our better agency staff to work with us. So we will be writing to all of our agency staff with an offer and explaining the actual benefits of working for a council as opposed to working for agency. Most of them will only be on a nest pension. We offer a local government pension. We also offer other benefits that they won't get as an agency worker. So some of our professional development money that we have to develop our planners will not get spent on agency staff, but if they join us, we will pay for some of their professional development for them. So the whole benefits of working for the council will be in that letter to them, encouraging them to have a conversation with their manager about coming to work for us on a permanent basis. They won't have to go through an application process if they've been working with us for a period of time and had good one-to-one reviews, and they're willing to come to work with us. We will circumvent that whole application process. Clearly, we will need to gather some more details of them, but that is what we're trying to do with our agency staff. We have had some interest so far, so we'll be pursuing those things with them. We are also looking at an agency who specialises in headhunting. This might sound like something we shouldn't do, but it's what a lot of people are doing at the moment, and we have to keep up with everybody else. Indeed, we've lost a very good member of staff because his head was turned by a headhunter, rang him and said, "We hear you're brilliant. Will you come and work for this organisation?" So we are investigating that. We are looking at a couple of agencies who specialise in that. We've got a very good rate that we've negotiated down. So we've got another meeting with the planning managers next week, I believe, to try and finalise some of that. We're also working and we've got a LinkedIn strategic partnership where our roles basically chase people. So they'll turn on their LinkedIn and they will get our offer. So that's a good investment of money as well. So those things have helped us to recruit. We have had quite successful recruitment recently. We've decided the best thing to do is to go in small numbers, and that's what we've been doing. So we're planning it out and we are advertising jobs on a drip feed basis, and we're having more success doing that. So that's where we are with planning. In terms of the agency cost, I agree with Stephen. My background, or recent background, was working in social care. And we had a memorandum of understanding across the east of England where we capped the agency rate. I know when I worked for that council, we did try and get the same thing in the east of England for planners, but we didn't quite get there. So that is something that I believe that we could usefully try and do with ILGA to see if there's any appetite for that, because it would make sense. If we can control that agency market, it would make sense for all of us, because as Stephen says, you know, we're just competing, and anyone who's got an extra £5 an hour is winning. So we need to try and work collaboratively across Hertfordshire and the region to see if we can get some form of control on these agency costs. So that's planning.
Thank you very much for that, Ellie. Are there any comments on that particular? Any more comments on that section? I think it's obviously a huge challenge, which we're going to have to sort of keep facing and look at different strategies. So thank you very much for all you're doing on that. So the next section is.
So there's, sorry, in this recruitment section, there's also work in there about turnover and vacancies and the number of new starters we've had. Clearly, these are a day in time, because sometimes our vacancies will potentially say 10 and the next day it'll be 3 because 7 people have started. So it is real time and it does change day by day. But we are working really hard. A lot of our vacancies because it takes longer to recruit than it does to resign. So we have, in some parts, it looks like we've got a few vacancies, but they're actively being recruited to, or there are offers out. Nothing is sitting there unless it's deliberately being held, either because we're just about to do a transformation piece of work to review the way in which we deliver those services in that area, or where some savings have had to be made. But there's not many that have been held up for budget savings. In terms of our turnover, we predict it will be about 15.6% at the end of the year. This is higher than last year, but a lot of this is about our transformation programme and other fixed term contracts coming to an end. We do rely quite a lot in some of our services on fixed term contracts. because we get pots of funding and we have people for a certain amount of time. And when they leave us, it is down as a termination of employment because we have to formally terminate the contract, which adds to those figures as well. So there are a small number of redundancies in there, but most of it is because of either we have an aging workforce, so we've had a few retirements, we've had a couple of ill health retirements. So that's what's added to that increase that we potentially will see this year.
Thank you, Ellie. I just wonder if I could ask a little bit more about the effect of the transformation on turnover, transformation project on turnover.
Okay, so we have removed our surveyor team in Stephen's property area and reconfigured the way in which we do that. What we found was when we did a deep dive that our surveyors were spending a lot of time commissioning surveys and we felt that we could do it differently. So we have changed the way in which the surveys happen. We have retained one of the surveyors who worked on capital projects, and the other reason is our capital project plan is basically paused because of our other financial constraints. So we didn't really need those roles moving forward. We've also successfully managed to redeploy one of our staff in democratic services over to Stevenage rather than have a redundancy cost. So we're working really hard in all of that we're doing with our transformation programme to maintain as many jobs as possible. And where we can't do that, I am working with colleagues to try and find alternative employment outside of the council for people. But again, the person who's gone to Stevenage will still be shown as a termination and add to those turnover figures because they're no longer employed by us.
Thank you. That's really helpful, and it's also really encouraging to see that you're working with other councils if you do have to redeploy people. Right. So are we moving on? Oh, Councillor Swainston.
Thank you. Can I just ask, do you have exit interviews and do you
We
then
do.
record? So you record people's reasons?
Yes. So they're voluntary. We can't force people to tell us. A lot of the reason people leave are, and I've got a list there about a lot of it is about personal growth, opportunities elsewhere that we can't provide at this time, especially like in the planning field. You know, if there's a senior job comes up in Stevenage or whatever, and there's no likelihood of us having a vacancy at that level for some time, of course people will look, if they are ambitious, to move on. At least we're keeping them in the public sector rather than going to private sector. I think when they're in the private sector, it's very hard to get them back because the remuneration, is a lot different, and people get bonuses and they get healthcare and things. We just don't have that sort of money and that reach. But people are tending to. We've had quite a few retirements. If I give you an example of our ageing population, I did a piece of work today because I'm doing some work on talent management and succession planning, and I did.
Sorry, Ellie, I think we just lost you for a moment.
Yeah, no, it's my. Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry, I dropped my book on my computer. Approximately 100 of our 300 staff are 55 plus. So we will see an increase with people taking their retirement over the next few years, and we are trying hard to think longer term about how we can increase the capacity of our workforce. The thing we need to bear in mind is the jobs we have today are not necessarily the jobs we need for the future. So we need to do some work about modelling what workforce we need as we move forward. And then we can start to say, how do we get those staff? Do we grow our own? We are certainly motoring on growing our own managers for the future. and we will be doing that with other roles as well. But we can then start to plan. And one of the things we're going to do with the LEP this year, the Local Enterprise Partnership, is work with them on getting some student placements in, not randomly in different departments, you know, come to work with dad or come to work with mum, but more structured with young people who are making their options now, and whether that be for GCSE or for A-level or even for their degree. And actually, how can we engage with them now to encourage them to be part of our future workforce? So we're having to look beyond the next 3 or 4 years as well, because of the situation we have with our ageing workforce.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ellie. And I do think it is really, really important that we bring in young people through schemes like the LEP scheme, particularly as we've got this ageing demographic in the workforce. It's so important that young people get given those opportunities.
Yes.
And I know in terms of apprenticeships, that's again something that perhaps needs to be, perhaps you
Yes.
could tell us, give us a bit more of a picture about apprenticeships.
So any apprenticeships we have at the moment are coming to an end. Clearly through COVID, we didn't have any apprentices because we couldn't give them the experience they needed in order to successfully complete their apprenticeship. What we'll be looking at as we start looking at our workforce as we go through transformation is, what are the opportunities to use apprenticeships? And now it could be that we use some of it for management apprenticeships for staff who are currently aiming to be managers, or who are managers who want to go to a more strategic level. And we'll be doing that planning as we go through. The thing of apprenticeships is we have to convert a current job. So in some areas, if you are struggling to find the specialist you need, the last thing a manager will do is offer up a job and say, it's okay, it can be an apprentice. So we need to, that's why we need to do that workforce modelling bit to say, what could we take out of some of these jobs to create an apprenticeship? And then where is the apprenticeship? You know, what apprentice partner could we use in order to deliver that?
Yes, I can see it's not as straightforward as it could be, but it is something I think that we probably all feel that there's a need to sort of to go forward with that.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you just quickly whether we know anything about our contractors and whether we ask them about their apprenticeships and so on?
They do. Our contractors do offer apprenticeships. I can't tell you which ones, but that is one of the things we ask them for when we go out to contract. In some of those places, it's easier because they're not the sort of, because we've outsourced a lot of our lower level roles. What we've got left is quite a lot of higher level roles. And so our contractors, it would be easier. And Stephen's got his hand up, so I'm sure he's got the figures.
Thank you, Stephen.
Chair, I don't actually have figures, but what I can assure members is that as part of the retendering of the waste, recycling and streets contract, a 10% of the contract is linked to social value. And we have specifically said in social value that we want to see the number of local people employed, the number of apprentices, etc. So that's clearly as part of the tender exercise, and it is 10% of the marks. There is social value. And so far in the competitive dialogue returns that we've seen some really strong evidence of contractors responding to that social value element. So to reassure members, it's part of our social value policy that we have local employment and we target towards apprenticeship, NEETs, people who've been homeless in the past, the forces, all of these are part of our social value policy. And in every contract that we do over a certain threshold, it's important that social value is in there. That's reinforced in the policy. So I just want to make it clear to members that when we do spend money, our intention is to multiply the effect of every pound we spend through social value.
Thank you very much. That's very encouraging. So I don't know if we want to move on to the next section of this report, or is there any, do people have any?
Would you like me to just go through the plans for the next quarter for you?
Yes, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
They're in the document itself, but just so you've got an idea in terms of The recruitment and retention, investigate benefits and costs of using other types of recruitment. I've just explained what we're doing there. We are doing a full review of our end-to-end recruitment process. One of the things that we know, yes, it's anecdotal, but we can back it up with data in certain points, is that we don't turn around things quickly enough. We've got very busy managers, we close a role and they might not shortlist for a week. The thing is that most people who are going to apply for another job might stick in 4 or 5 different applications to different authorities, and we need to be quicker in the way we're doing things. So we're doing a full review of end to end. We're looking at our applicant tracking system. Stephen and I have investigated one that will give us better data and less manual intervention. And that's on one of the government frameworks. So we are looking at that and really going to be encouraging managers to spend more time onboarding people. Don't just offer a job and then don't talk to them until they turn up 2 months later. It's having that constant contact and promoting that emotional engagement with us before people even start. So we're also looking at our neutral vendor contract. We have all of our agency staff, except where we can't get them, and that has to be approved by me, go through a neutral vendor, so that we are ensured that all of the agencies that work with that neutral vendor have been vetted, that they have all their safeguarding in place, they have everything in place that we need people to have, so we don't have to do that ourselves. So we go through that company. That is coming to an end, and we're just looking to see if there's anyone else out there who can do a better job for us. So we'll be looking at that very carefully. And we're looking at further campaigns as well. We've got a new brand for planning, and we want to keep enhancing that and moving forward. And we'll do the same with any other hard to fill jobs. We will follow that same very thorough, very well thought out plan rather than just randomly advertise jobs. And we'll be doing some training for managers on things like how to write a good advert. Some of the words that we use, and we see them all the time, things like an exciting opportunity. That's just not the stuff that attracts people now. So we're changing, we want to change the tone of how we present ourselves. So that's what they're the things we're working on in terms of recruitment.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And very sort of interesting to know about, you know, what the future plans are. So are we moving on to health and safety now?
Did you just want me to go through learning and development really quickly, and then I'll pass you over?
Yes, that'd be
I know
great.
it's a big thing. So we have a learning platform called SkillsGate. All of our staff have to do mandatory e-learning every year. Those things are refreshed every year for staff. We are also ensuring that we only get staff to do what they need to do in law. We've been a bit overzealous at some points, asking people to do the same thing year in, year out. We don't need to do that. And actually just, it becomes a tick box exercise, and we want it to be meaningful. We're also going to be working with ILGA. They have a new cultural awareness hub that will provide a lot of the stuff we need for our minority groups, so that we can then ensure our staff all understand how they best work together, so we have a really good culture in the organisation. So we have also got a future managers programme called First Step. The first cohort is nearly finished. It comes to an end at the end of March. We started with 13, we've got 11 left. Unfortunately, we lost 2 people because they then felt confident to apply for managers' jobs outside of the council. So I guess in one way it succeeded, and the other way it sort of backfired. But then that was always going to be that way. But we have 11 left who are really enthusiastic. They've had a lot of one-to-one or face-to-face training from myself and from an external organisation, and they are now going to be working with some of the senior managers on some projects to give them that further exposure across the council. In terms of our service managers, we have a new programme for them called Next Step. Most of our managers have been through that. We've got a wash-up session in April planned, and that is talking to them about how to stop looking down all the time, and how do you look up, and how do you contribute to the direction of the organisation, and what do you need to do to make that move. And that has gone down very well as well. and we're just about to launch in Q1 of next year a middle manager development program. So anyone who's already a manager but hasn't yet reached the level of service manager will have a 2-day training program as well. And that's just for starters. There are some other one-off modules we're doing around commercialism, and ILGA have just developed a new program for that. So we'll be talking to them, and working with members is another one for new service managers who perhaps haven't had the opportunity to work with members, and how do they best navigate through that. So we've got a lot of stuff going on in terms of management development, and we'll be doing a full needs analysis after the annual performance development reviews. Alex, who's going to be working with us as service manager, will be doing that analysis for us so that we know where best to spend our money to get best value. So it's an update.
Great, thank you very much. Yes, it's good to see that there's so much going on, and obviously we're all learning all the time. So that's great to know. So I wonder if we could move on to health and safety now. Is that
Peter's
over
going to do that.
over to you, Peter?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so we begin with a background in accident, incident and near-miss definitions for members so that they know what is recordable, what is reportable, what is not reportable. Are there any questions in regards to the definitions that were provided under those categories? Under non-reportable accidents or reportable accidents. Are you familiar with RIDDOR?
I don't think there are any questions. But that's a helpful definition. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So fortunately, I can report we've had no reportable accidents under the reporting of injuries, diseases, dangerous occurrence regulations, and we've got a very low rate of actual basic accidents, and these literally are minor injuries. They're small cuts, they're contact injuries where people walked into a desk or slipped or tripped, and we don't tend to get many of them, so it's quite good. We're classed as a low risk environment under HSE definitions of their risk, so I wouldn't be expecting to see a high rate of accidents, and I certainly wouldn't be expecting to see anything in the RIDDOR range that would be of concern. So in terms of accidents, as you can see there, they're the kind of things that are reportable under RIDDOR. They've got a very strict series of definitions about what's reportable, what's not reportable. So hopefully those explanations will give you some indication of the level of accident that you're talking about, the severity, everything from an amputation to death, so these are the things that get reported. In terms of reportable incidents, those are things that are brought to the HSE's attention, such as incidents on building sites, which fall under HSE purview, not us as a local authority. But again, they're obviously obliged to respond to any reports that they receive from members of the public. So, they're quick to come in and check to make sure things are being managed correctly, which neatly leads on to contract management and responsibility. Members were inquiring about the council's responsibility when it comes to contracted services. And I can obviously let you know there that a majority of our high risk, what we class as high risk services, waste and recycling, street cleansing, grounds, parks, maintenance, are contracted services out. That doesn't mean that we as a council have just handed over the responsibility. The liability does remain with us for all statutory functions carried out which go out to contract. We will, if there is a serious enough incident, it will come back to us. We can't just say, oh no, it's the contractor. So what they will be looking for is our contract management processes. What do we do? What do we look at? And we've got some good project managers who are very proactive at working closely with contractors, raising issues, working closely with the contractor to ensure the contractor delivers the service in the public domain in a safe manner, but also it's safe for their employees and it's safe for members of the public and our staff who may visit those sites, such as Buntingford Depot. So we do have various meetings with contract managers. They attend safety committee to report back on any changes, any issues, any upcoming exciting projects. It's not all bad news. It's not all doom and gloom. There is some very exciting new stuff that's coming along in the pipeline, which I work with those contract managers on. I work closely with each service where there are contracts being managed. I will be meeting with the transformation manager so that we can discuss the very issue around making sure desks are appropriate and that we make sure that we accommodate staff with specific needs. So I will be working with that transformation team to ensure that we don't just squeeze people in, that we work proactively to make sure that people are accommodated and it's inclusive. It can't be exclusive. I also help and support towards qualities impact assessments. So it links in terms of ensuring that whatever proposals and changes we make do not disproportionately affect people with disabilities. So it's important that we ensure we have a flexible workspace, but it's flexible for everybody. So obviously the heads of service for each of the main contractors have an overall responsibility. That responsibility is delegated through discharge responsibilities from the chief exec, and they appoint the contract manager, but they're responsible for oversight. As a rule, contracts are run very well. The contract managers are very quick to respond to issues before they become serious problems. So it's important that we keep our eye on the ball in regards. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you very much for that. That's very comprehensive. And I think one of the things that perhaps we wouldn't have realised is that the responsibility for that the council retains a responsibility for health and safety with contracted workers as well, with contracts. So it's important to understand that we keep that relationship, that there are regular meetings to make sure that the health and safety procedures are all in place. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Miriam.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you have to have any oversight of the Everyone Active sites, or are they entirely
Yes,
separate?
that is one of the contracted services. So we do have a contract manager who has regular meetings with SLM to discuss the operational sites. Obviously, we awarded a contract to SLM to run those facilities, and they have responsibility for making sure the facilities are maintained and are operational. So yes, the contract manager does, and I also attend those meetings as well, and I receive data from the centres, predominantly accident figures, just to have a look to see if there are any abnormal patterns or abnormal traits that I might pick up, which obviously I take up with the managers and ask if there is an unusual pattern and why are we seeing it. I also do go out on site visits and have a look around, discuss with the operational managers how things are going. So yes, very much from, and certainly in the early stages of the redevelopment of Grange Paddocks, the project manager was virtually on site all day, most days, to ensure that everything was being carried out, and it was, and very successfully. So yeah, we do keep oversight of everything that's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Peter, and thank you
You're
very much for that
Thank you.
sort of comprehensive report. So I think that, let's see, so that concludes the first item on the agenda.
Can I
Yes, of
just
course.
add something? So we are a small team and we do tend to work in a way that we try and prevent things becoming an issue. So we do a lot of work up front when we hear things might be going wrong. The same with our employee relations, you know, we work very closely with Unison to try and stop things becoming major issues and get involved at that time to try and sort things out, because you know, it's very easy for things to escalate quickly if you don't get in and try and nip it in the bud. So we don't wait until it becomes formal. We try and sort things out informally. And the same goes with health and safety. If we get a call, then we're on it straight away. We don't wait till it becomes formal. So I just wanted to assure you of that.
Yes, thank you very much. That is very reassuring. So if, yes, sorry, yes. Yes.
Does the health and safety include the health and the safety of members as well, who often are meeting the public in rather stressful times sometimes in areas of conflict? And does it extend to members as well?
That's a very, very good question asked by a lot of my peers and nationally across the country, because of the status, members are not employees
Right.
of the council. Yes, we still have a duty of care to provide advice and guidance, which I support the member development team on putting together information for members on being thoughtful about how they hold their clinics, where they meet people. We are in a very rural area, so obviously we have a lot of parish councils. We have a lot of little village halls. It's a dark night. You are going out to maybe host a clinic. There might be a contentious planning issue that people are taking umbrage about. So we do provide a lot of advice in terms of being mindful about how you think about your evening. You know, is there mechanisms for informing a friend or somebody that where you're going to be, having a means of communication, letting someone know roughly what time you're going to be expected home or coming back, where you'll be. In terms of the liabilities, obviously, you're not classed as employees, so the liabilities are different. And I think we'd need to obviously discuss that with the insurer if there were any issues. Stephen, do you want to add to that?
Stephen.
Chair, we have had experiences with members in the past where members have been in particularly vulnerable situations. And when members say to us they feel particularly vulnerable in certain situations, we do have what we call a lone worker device, which you attach to the back of an identification card, and it has a panic button facility which will go automatically through to a call centre who will check, and they will say, are you all right? And if you don't answer, they will automatically call the police, and it has a GPS location in it. And we have undertaken in the past where members feel particularly vulnerable to provide them with such devices. So if members feel particularly vulnerable, please talk to Democratic Services, and then we can equip you with a lone worker device. And as a pro tem as well, there is an app which is available on mobile phones, which links to the same call centre. So we can set that up if members would prefer not to have the bulkiness, because it is quite a bulky attachment on the back of an ID card. I think Peter's got that sort of ID card. So it fits in there. So if members are feeling particularly vulnerable, then they just please say to us, and we will provide you with that lone worker safety device in order to help you feel safer to do your job.
Thank you, Stephen. If I could just add to that, the lone worker device, as I say, it's a small handheld device that has an SOS function, GPS, a memo recording facility, because if you're entering a block of flats, etc., GPS doesn't function as well. But you could, for example, record a message for the alarm receiving centre that informs, you know, I'm at flat 10, floor 6, whatever. The only negative side I would say to the device is It is very much dependent on the user to ensure that they keep them charged, that they keep the information up to date. They are roaming SIMs, and SIMs can be used in a phone. So if it gets lost, it has to be reported immediately so that it can be rendered inactive. Or we could find somebody deciding to ring South America with their stolen SIM card. So, and obviously there is a fee attached to it. It's not a free service. We do have to pay for it. So there are some logistical implications around issuing a lone working device. The team there would have to be someone who is a member of the Democratic Service team as a group administrator that would oversee setting up. Every person has an individual profile, so they all have to be set up individually on the system, because it's no good just issuing you a device. The alarm receiving centre need to know who it's assigned to, so you can't lend them to anybody. If someone's forgotten one, you can't say, well, look, here's mine, because if they push the button, the alarm receiving centre might say, I've got Councillor John Dunlop, but you don't sound like Councillor John Dunlop, and that might alert them that there's something seriously wrong. So we do have to think about the logistics of that. That has been explained quite in detail before, but as Stephen said, it's not something we rule out, we look into. And if it's an option that is viable, then we have to look at how we can make that happen.
Thank you very much, and that's helpful to know about.
Just for the record, my constituents in Huntsden are a very friendly bunch. I'm not worried in the slightest.
Right, so I think we've come to the end of that item then. So there's two recommendations, the item which are on page 15 of the agenda pack. So the recommendations are to consider the Human Resources report for Q3, October to December 2023, and to provide any comments to the HR officer, head of HR and O&D regarding the content or formatting of the report. And I think we've done that. So can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor Dunlop, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Swainston. All those in favour? No one against or abstaining, so that's carried. Okay, so moving on to item 6, the Gender Pay Gap Report 2023. So again, I think it's over to Ellie. So thank you very much for preparing this report, Ellie.
Yes, so our research on our data shows that we don't have a problem with a gender pay gap. Unlike some other authorities who found themselves on the wrong end of it, and Birmingham City is one of those examples. So we do have certain types of roles where we do have more of a pronounced gap, and they tend to be in roles that are have been traditionally female, like administration. The same as if we still had waste inside, we'd probably find the majority are men in that, and that is happening. The thing that we want to do is to make sure that our jobs are exciting and people can see opportunities for growth, to try and attract into some of those more traditionally male or female roles, a more balanced gender in terms of those job holders. That won't happen overnight because there are social and economic reasons why people won't necessarily apply for those type of jobs. But we do ensure that when we go out to recruit, we go out and we cover as many people as possible in terms of where we advertise, how we advertise, so that we do make sure that we have that male and females have equal access to all of our jobs. And then it's up to them whether they want to apply. And the work I told you we wanted to do about looking at our future workforce will help with some of this if we can make jobs a little bit different and people see them as less traditional in terms of, you know, admin is admin, I can't do that. And actually, with our digital approach now, and we're looking at Be Digital's one of the 3 themes in transformation, we hope that that's going to make a difference in terms of the people we attract. So in terms of the leadership team, that's a very even balance for a leadership team. In fact, in all the places I've worked, it's probably the most balanced leadership team I've come across, and the same with service managers. So in terms of our management, we are very much, we embrace the fact that we want a gender balance, and not just gender. It's not just about gender, it's about other characteristics as well, and we do seek to do that all the time. So has anyone got any questions on that sort of detail before I go through the actions?
I think we're happy for you to go through the actions at this point.
Okay.
Thank you, Ellie.
So we have some actions that we planned for last year, and I can tell you the progress on them and what else we're going to do. So the equality and diversity module that's mandatory, we need to keep doing more. We had a big take up of people doing the program, but we want to make it we want to ensure that people don't just see it as a tick box, they see it as the way we need to work together, which is why I mentioned earlier about the ILGA Culture Hub, because they're doing an awful lot more work than we necessarily have in the equalities and diversity training we did. I don't think the current letter from government saying about wasting money, and I'm paraphrasing here, on equalities training and things isn't helpful, because actually it's really important, and that's why it can't be a tick box. We need to make sure it's part of our culture. So we'll be working on that. Our interviewing panel, we are a small organisation and we can't always get a gender balanced interview panel, but wherever we can, we try. So we will still keep plugging away at that, and the review of the recruitment process will hammer that home about you need to try and get a gender balance in your recruitment panel wherever possible. And for some roles, it's easier to draft someone in from something else if it's a more of a managerial role than a technical role. So we'll be working on that still. We were going to use Plotter, I told you about this before, to try and attract more younger people of both sexes into the organisation, but that has now been dissolved or disbanded by LGA, so we will continue with the LEP on that. And in terms of our future manager, out of our 11 remaining people, 7 are women and 4 are men. I think it's 7 or 4. Hang on, I'll just check. Yes, 7 out of the remaining 11. So we do have a large female cohort on that, and we will continue when we go for cohort 2. We will encourage more males to come forward and be part of the second cohort as well. So we are looking at everything we do in terms of gender to make sure we are equipping people with the right skills in order to be mindful of the need to consider these things in everything they do.
Thank you very much, Ellie. I just had one sort of a point to make, or question really, which is to do with this demographic, the ageing demographic of the workforce, and perhaps if we did have if we were able to sort of put more into sort of recruiting much younger people, then that would also have an effect on the gender pay gap as well.
Yes, and that's absolutely right, and that is one of our ambitions. I mean, we only have, if I can find my piece of paper, our 19 to 24 age group is quite sparse compared to the older age groups. So we do want to do that. We need to change what people see a council as being. And I think there's still, in some areas, there's still this whole thing about councils are just a group of people who pick up rubbish, and what they don't realise is actually how much councils contribute to the community and all the great opportunities there are to become a professional in a field. So we need to up our game on that. So that's why we're going to engage with the LEP to try and get into colleges, to try and get into schools, to sell what it is we do, because I don't think people still, younger people, don't necessarily see it as an option at the moment. So we need to change that.
Yes, maybe a few sort of TikTok videos or.
Well, if you're up for it, Councillor Carter, I'm sure.
Well, maybe somebody else. But no,
But you're
that's
right. But you are right in a way. I know that was an off-the-cuff remark, but our Be Digital stream, we have to think about how do we sell this? How do we get people interested in being part of the council in terms of new ways of working and modernising what we do? So that there is an element to that we have to take forward.
Yep, absolutely. So are there any more questions on this report? Well, thank you very much for introducing it and for preparing it. You know, it does give us a really detailed understanding of this topic, and we will be getting an equalities report later on in the
You will.
in you know, later on in the year, I believe, as well. So that'd be great. Okay, so unless there are any other comments, I think that concludes that item. There are two recommendations for the item, which are detailed on page 26 of the agenda pack. To consider the gender pay gap report and to provide any comments to the HR officer stroke head of HR and OD. So I wonder if I could have if we're happy with that, could I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Swainston, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dunlop. So all those in favour? I think that's everybody. So no one against or no abstention, so that's carried. Moving on to item 7, urgent business. So there are no urgent items, and so that concludes tonight's meeting at, I believe, 2017.